Thank you for the gift of your song in the great celebration of that wonderful prayer by St. Francis. Well, we just got back from annual conference where we had a wonderful three-day meeting doing the business of United Methodists in New England, and it was renewing and powerful and a great time to be together with Methodists from all across New England. It was especially a joyful occasion for us as at this annual conference, Faith Green was given her local pastor's license, and we celebrated with her that fine achievement. And it was always good to be together, particularly in this season in the United Methodist Church where we're struggling to find a way to be an inclusive community. And I always draw such spiritual nourishment from other United Methodists who feel as we do that the church should be open for all people. It should be an inclusive community, and we did things that we need to do to continue to push for that agenda within the broader United Methodist Church. So it was good, a good experience. This morning I'm continuing to look into the future and think of what I believe the church should and will become. And today I'd like to say that the future of the church is to be an organization and a group of folks who work for equality for all people. And I came across this quotation that I'd like to read. Perhaps the most insidious suffering people inflict is denying someone their dignity and rights. It is here that secularists have seen the church abdicate leadership. Historically, we've often been silent or passive in addressing discrimination based on race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. Sometimes we have let prejudice masquerade in pious attire. A new Methodism leads society forward and doesn't hold it back. It eliminates us and them thinking. I found that to be a fairly inspiring paragraph, a hopeful paragraph. I think it draws a good, positive picture about where we ought to go under God's guidance. But the struggle for equality has always been at the heart and soul of the biblical faith. You know, our earliest story is the story of the Exodus, when God looks down and sees the suffering of the people in Egypt, and God intervenes by calling Moses to deliver them. I remember in seminary studying with my professor, Kathy Darr, and she pointed out one of the rather unique things in history, that even though the book of Exodus talks about a great large group of Hebrew people leaving Egypt, there's no record in any of Egyptian history of this large group of people leaving. Most historians think that's rather odd, and one person by the name of Norman Gottwald thought of a way that might explain that. he suggests that the original group of Hebrew slaves that leave Egypt was not that large, that it was a very small group of people that would seem insignificant to the Egyptian empire. And as they left, they told this story of liberation, that God looked, that we lived in this empire, we were treated harshly, we were exploited economically, we were made to suffer. And as they told that story over and over again, that story drew other people into their company and into their journey. For the story of the powerful exploiting the weak is an omnipresent story, as it is still true today. And each time they told the story of a liberating God, a God who acts to set the oppressed free, well, a few more people would join them. And then a few more people would join them. And so what starts out as a very small group of people at the time of the Exodus becomes a very large group of people as they enter into the land of promise. Well, I do not know if Norman Gottwalt got history right or not, but I do believe that the story of a God who sets the oppressed free is a compelling story. Is a compelling story. And a lot of Israel's history is the drama of forgetting the story of a God who liberates and who sets free. The ancient prophets are most incensed when the leadership of Israel treats the poor as harshly as Pharaoh treated them when they were enslaved. And the story that sticks out most for me is the story of Naboth's vineyard. It is the time of King Ahab and the prophet Elijah. And King Ahab would go to his summer palace, and right next to King Ahab's summer palace was a vineyard that belonged to Naboth. And every day Ahab would look out his window and see Naboth's vineyard, and he would say to himself, I wish I owned that vineyard. It would be so convenient if I could plant my gardens right next to my summer palace. And as he would look out and as he would talk about wanting that property, well, his wife Jezebel would hear him. Now, Jezebel was not a Hebrew. She was from another culture, from another country. And she would always say to Ahab, well, you're the king, take it. You have the power, it's yours, just get it. But Ahab would not. And then through a rather strange sense of intrigue, Jezebel gets a hold of the royal seal, writes a letter, has Naboth falsely accused of treachery, and Naboth is put to death. And Ahab ends up with the vineyard. No, Israel's history is a struggle to remember that what God wills most is equality and fairness and justice. The future of the church, I believe, will be a people who work for human equality everywhere. I understand the U.S. women's soccer team did pretty well this week, right? They beat, was it Thailand that they beat 13-0? And all the while they're having this great winning season and playing great soccer. They're in a lawsuit with the United States Soccer Federation because the women's soccer team is not being treated equally with the men's soccer team. The salaries are nowhere near equal. And I even saw that the men always play on natural grass, and quite often the women have to play on artificial turf, which makes them much more prone to injury. So let's all cheer for that team, not just that they win their games, but in their quest for equality. Their quest for equality. One of the things I'll always remember about you always cherish is that great big banner we put out front, equal before God. You know the story. Julie McGettrick was a member here. She envisioned that, she designed it, raised the money to buy those banners, display them proudly. Because here we believe in equality. Here we will work for and strive to create a place of belonging for all people, equal before God. I was very pleased to be at annual conference, and just to share with you very briefly, we did elect a very progressive group of people to represent us in the General Conference of 2020, people who will advocate for a church becoming more accepting and more inclusive. I believe that the future of the church will be a people committed to equality. And let me share that paragraph with you one more time. Perhaps the most insidious suffering people inflict is denying someone their dignity and rights. It is here that secularists have seen the church abdicate leadership. Historically, we have been silent or passive in addressing discrimination based on race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. Sometimes we have let prejudice masquerade in pious attire. A new Methodism leads society forward and does not hold it back. It eliminates us and them thinking. Equality is the future of our church. Amen.